Hi, I'm Vanessa, and this is Nicole.
Hey.
With the Healthy Life Project, and we are reading Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis, and we are in our third week talking about it, and we are going over chapters 10 through 15 tonight, and I think that these are my favorite chapters yet. I'm very excited about it.
I would tend to agree. I mean, they definitely resonate with me the best, so that might be why I like them the most.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the book is definitely getting better as you go through it. So I'm not, I don't know if she planned it like that or what, but I'm really enjoying it. So, okay, so you said chapters 11 through 15, right? You want to start with chapter 11?
Sure. Okay, so let me go back to chapter 11. Okay, so chapter 11, The Lie. Can you see it? It's really hot. So it says, so each chapter, if you have not been with us, is a lie. And she says what the lie is, and then she goes into how that lie has affected her life.
Yeah.
And so this lie is other people's kids are so much cleaner, better organized, and more polite. And this kind of goes off of the other few chapters that were before this, when she talked about her marriage, right?
Well, like bonding with her baby.
I'm not a good mom.
Like, I'm not a good mom because she felt guilty for being a working mom.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so this is just the chaos of the whole life, and like just learning how to embrace the chaos and not stressing so much about like your life doesn't look like a magazine and you didn't get up and do like your 2-hour morning routine, and then the kids didn't skip downstairs like hair perfect, teeth brushed, ready for school, like, good morning, mother.
Yes. And she talks about how like this chaos creates the stress.
Yeah.
And that like a lot of it deal with it in 3 different ways. And I thought that was really good.
I like that. Yeah.
So she talks about how we can ignore it and pretend it's not there, but that it catches up with you. So, and then she talked about we can battle it. So we are constantly pushing like, no, it's not going to be this messy. No, it's not going to be this chaotic. No, I'm going to have my schedule under control. Like, you're just put every day as a battle. Mm-hmm. And then she said, or we can drown in it. So it's kind of like you gave up and you're like, oh, well, my life's just chaos and it's always going to be like that. And I'm never going to, so, and just, she talks about how like none of them are really good for you. Like you shouldn't deal with them in that way.
I feel like I feel like those are like stages of my week though, sometimes. Like I so for real feel like I've gone through like all of that, maybe possibly even today. Yeah. Like ignored the fact that my son emptied his entire room into the upstairs hallway. Then I battled it and I was like, you need to clean this up. This is not the way we're going to live. This is a fire hazard. Straight from mom's words, like our entire childhood. And then we drowned in it because it's still there and I just made a path. So.
Oh, that's awesome. It's like all 3 things in just one situation.
Yeah, I'm like, we need to go back to school. We are starting on Monday.
Well, that whole thing that Connor cleaned out his room and did all of that. Of
I know, I saw.
So Cade moved his entire bedroom around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, while the younger one was doing that, the older one was spray paint art decorating various airsoft things. So he'd spray paint in a bucket and then dip things, and like Then we have to talk about how we don't use our cutting boards for paint because then they're not food safe anymore. And so, I think, for real, this was my life this week. Great timing.
So she said, like, what I thought a few things is, and I think this is the hardest thing for me, is give ourselves grace.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all mess up. And yeah, so, and probably the best thing that I loved was when she talks about how God sends the raft.
Yes. Yes, I talk about that all the time.
Yes. I mean, that's really good. You know, she just talks about how, like, this guy's drowning and he's like, God save me. And so God sends him a raft and a boat, and they're like, let me save you. And he's like, no worries, God's gonna save me. And it happens like 3 times, and then he goes to heaven because he drowns. And he's like, God, why didn't you send me help? And he's like, I sent you 3 boats. And so she just talks about how, like, God is sending us all kinds of life rafts and we need to use them. And she's like, get in the freaking boat. Like, you know, and she talks about just stop trying to do it all. Like, it's fine if your mother-in-law helps you. It's fine if your friend brings you dinner. It's fine that, you know, all these things. It doesn't mean that you're failing because someone's helping you.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really important to know and understand, especially for, I think, new moms. And even not new moms.
All moms.
But it's fine. No, you know, you're not failing just because you're not doing it on your own. That's why there's, you know, the whole, it takes a village to raise.
Well, and just because your friend is helping you does not mean that she has all her crap together either. She just has it together for this one moment. And and then we'll go right back into the cycle as well.
Yeah. And you can reach out and help when she's down.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the whole point, is that we're all gonna have that. And it's wonderful to be able to recognize that, that you're not going to have it all together and they're not either.
And also, like, help people within your boundaries. Like, if you want to help someone, but the ability that you have is to send them pizza, then do that. Send them pizza from your phone and call it good. Like, you don't have to cook something and drive it over and look presentable and then have that weird, like, 45-second conversation at the door when, like, nobody really wants to see each other. Like, you can just send food to their house. You can just text them and say, like, what restaurant do you want delivered to your house right now? And that's great. So do it within your boundaries too. Like, if you want to reach out and help somebody, don't, like, kill yourself to help somebody else. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I agree. So do you want to move on to chapter 12?
Yeah, the lie, I need to make myself smaller. Ooh, this was a good one. This was a very good one. I think I highlighted the most in this chapter out of the whole book. And the first thing, so she's talking about how she acted and changed who she was in order to fit into what she thought other people needed from her and how they would love her best. And I feel like all of us do this, especially people with big personalities. And the first thing that I highlighted from this was she talks about how, like, she became an avid, like, type A performer. Like, she was like, I'm going to get this goal and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, in order to compensate for a lot of things that went on in her childhood and to please her parents. And so she writes that I was performing just enough to gain your attention, but not truly being myself for fear of what everyone might think of the real me.
Yeah.
Oh, that one was deep. And And then I have so many goals and dreams for myself, and not one of them is small. They're big and wild and full of hope. They require faith and courage and a whole lot of audacity. I cannot get there, and I will not get there unless I start embracing every side of my character, including the sides of me that make other people uncomfortable. And for me personally, I have always been a big personality. I've always been straight to the point. I don't dance around things. And for my entire life, up until just a few months ago, and I'm sure it won't be the last time that it happens, that I have been told that I should seriously consider being different.
Oh, yeah.
Like, have you ever considered just being different? Like, not just being something else other than this? Like, maybe you should think about that.
That's crazy. Who says that to someone?
I can give you a list of the people. Like I have been sat down several times over and over again. And I think that's part of why, just to go off on a tangent, why I have, like, I'll step out into the spotlight and then I come right back out. Like, and I go back out. Like, I'm like, no, this is what God's calling me to do. I need to do it. I need to honor that. He made me big for a reason. And I'll go out into the spotlight and then I'm like, whoa, and I come right back in, because I just go out there just long enough that nobody says anything mean, and then I come back and hide. And then
talks about that later on too, which is that was really speaking to my heart, but we're going to get there. And like she says here, have you spent your lifetime muting yourself for fear of what others will think? And I
feel like almost everyone is going to be like, yeah,
at some point, definitely. But I mean, I have literally said to myself, you've got to just stop talking. Just stop talking. Like, that's when people kind of turn away from you and feel uncomfortable, because like you said, I have never, I'm
backed out from a fight.
I'm straight to the point also. And I think it has a lot to do with us. I don't know. I'm going to say something that I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it might have to do with us being Yankees coming down to the South. And,
yeah. I mean,
we were like, that was embraced up north, being brash and bold and speaking your mind. And then you come down here and they're like, no, you should be like, I really feel like we're told to be little in the South. Like, you have to be sweet. You have to be, all, and I'm like, that's not me. Like, I'm not like, bless your heart. I'm like, go F yourself.
Well, for me, I have been told all over the United States and across the pond in Wales that who I am is not okay. So I do not discriminate on where I am. I pull that same reaction from people all over the globe. So yeah. But so there was one quote, and I apologize if you can hear my cat meowing on the other side of the door. He thinks that he absolutely needs to get there right now. So I love this quote too. Like, it makes me wonder how many women are walking around living in half their personality, and in doing so, denying who their creator made them to be. Do you really think God made you uniquely, wonderfully you, in hopes you would deny your true self because it might be off-putting to others? It's like, oh, well. And then there are hundreds of ways to lose yourself, but the easiest of them all is refusing to acknowledge who you truly are in the first place. And I feel like, obviously there are social norms, and like, you're not supposed to walk around like being offensive, or, like, there are social cues and graces that you follow, but to speak frankly to somebody, or be able to call out the uncomfortable thing in the room, or to be the one that can confront somebody else and say like, hey, that wasn't okay, in, of course, a nice manner, not like insulting or whatever. I feel like all of those things, like, God made you that way. Like, I don't know how to scheme against somebody, and I never will end up figuring it out. And I feel like God made me that way because I needed to be the one who goes ahead and talks about hard things. Like, and like, God made you the way he made you because he needs that out in the world.
I agree. And that's one of the things, like she says, I believe that you are not a mistake, and feeling guilt about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And, that we're not an accident. And that is really powerful, it's okay. It doesn't matter if we're, overeducated, emotional, book it. She just says all these things, and we're doing a disservice to ourselves and our creator by not being who we're made to be. And that was really a great chapter. I just really love the way she explained it.
Oh, I so agree. And I was like, oh, this one just needs to be on repeat every freaking morning, and maybe in the afternoon too. And then the next one knocked it out of the park, because I feel like this is exactly where we are in our lives right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, God is totally. So the next one is, I'm going to marry Matt Damon.
Yes, I'm going to marry Matt Damon. And it's so funny, because I was like, where is she going with this chapter?
Oh my gosh, I was like, yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah.
And what was so interesting is that she took the lie, like, I'm going to marry Matt Damon, and just flipped it and said, like, I used that to imagine and believe and achieve my goals. She was like, it was that belief that I was going to marry Matt Damon that brought me to LA. And then, then the next thing that she envisioned and she really saw herself having was that Louis Vuitton bag.
Yeah.
And she just talks about how important it is to really envision and imagine yourself in whatever goal you're doing. And this is exactly what we were doing with our vision board, and what we were talking about with, actually sitting down, and they say to feel yourself there, to think of what you're going to hear, think of what you're going to feel. And she talks about how she envisioned, like, taking the scarf and changing it for each season that was wrapped around her bag, and, all these things. And she gave herself a goal, and till she got to that goal, she didn't actually buy the bag, and things like that. So,
so for me, this whole chapter was about asking, believing, doing the work that it takes, and then receiving. So I fully believe that if, like, God's waiting, he's like, great, what do you want? Like, it's on me. But you need to know what you want, because if you don't know exactly what you want, he can't give it to you. You need to believe that he's on your side, and you need to believe in him and have faith that he will give that thing to you. You need to do the work to get it, because you're not going to just get to sit on the couch and be like, I'd like a Lamborghini. And God's like, sweet, bing, and drops it on your, in your driveway. You have to do the work to prove that you are worthy and that you are serious about it. And then you actually receive that thing. And so I thought this was so great. And I feel like when I dig into a lot of books like this, that is the same pattern. Not everybody describes it the same way. Sometimes they leave parts out, but it's ask, believe, do the work, receive. And, like, you're good to go. And just, so that's why there's there's books that have been written over 100 years ago that talk about this.
Oh yeah.
And talk about how you can't just imagine, a red sports car, right? And so this is why these things worked so well for her. She imagined herself meeting Matt Damon at a function and did the work to get to that, and it happened. She envisioned the purse and exactly the way it looked and exactly the way it was going to feel. And so she had those very specific things. And so like if you are thinking about something like a car or whatever, you have to think about all of those tiny little details. What does it look like inside? What does the interior feel like? What is it going to feel like when you sit down? Is it leather? Is it cloth? All of that. And if you do the work, you'll end up with stuff like that. It's very, very cool. I loved this chapter. I was like jumping up and down inside reading.
Yeah. And she says and that exactly what you were saying, you have to have a clear vision.
Yeah.
And she talks about how the clear vision gives her something to focus on, just like how keeping your eyes on the horizon helps you. So she was saying like these dreams, these visions, whatever you want to call them, they kept her eyes above the water. So when everything else was not going the way she planned and things seemed like they were falling apart, she just kept her eyes above the water. And she was like, this is where it's going to go. This is where it's going to go. And she was able to do that because the vision was so clear.
Yes. And she believed in it. She could feel it, which I think is really important. Like you've got to be able to emotionally feel it.
And I love some of the stuff that she talks about. It's just funny, like some of her daydreams and things like that. That was really funny. And she says really important stuff about this, imagining, and then believing and achieving. She says, like everyone says over and over again, you have to write it down.
Yeah.
And you have to say it out loud, because it makes it more real to you. And she says that in the car when no one was around was when she would say it out loud to herself. And she would just say it over and over and over, because when you say it, you're believing yourself. And of course, a vision board, which we have recently done. So
we should do a vision board with the group.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
It would be a lot of fun. Definitely amazing.
Yeah, so I wrote down a bunch of my daydreams while I was reading it, and I'm like, I didn't. Some of them I didn't even realize were daydreams like that, and I was like, oh no, like I should own that, because I would like think of something and I'd be like, oh, that's silly. I'm like, actually, no, I'm gonna own that and dream it into existence.
I love it.
Yeah. So chapter 14 was The Lie. I'm a terrible writer. And this was just listening to the haters, right? Like, yeah. So like basically you have to be willing to put it out, like put the thing that you're creating out there, whether you're the best analyst in the field, or you're a painter, or you're a writer, you want to write children's books, like whatever it is, you have to be willing to do it, even if people don't like it, even if they hate it, even if they give like she's talking about her reviews, like if they give 1 or 2 stars, because people's bad and negative opinion on something isn't going to make you bad at what you're doing.
Yes. And she says it over and over again. Someone else's opinion of me is none of my business.
Oh, yeah.
And I just loved that, because she said, you can't make people like or understand what you're doing. And you cannot create something based off of what you think your audience wants.
Yeah.
And that was really that was eye-opening to me, because I definitely feel like I've done that.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone does.
Well, what are people going to like? What are people, what's going to bring?
I've texted you things like, is that too harsh? Is that too bold? And you're like, yes. And we're both like, Okay. That kind of stuff
Yeah.
is
Well,
like, I
I mean,
totally
that
thought
was
about all that. Like, we're both like, I'm like, should I be smaller? And you're like, yes. And I'm like, you're right. And then you'll do the same thing. You're like, is that a good? And I'm like, oh. like,
yeah.
like we're doing it to ourselves, and then we're doing it to people we love. Like, it's so bad.
Well, it's because we don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, you're like, well, if you don't put anything bad out there, then no one's going to say something bad.
Yeah, like, well, and so I've heard people say, like, especially with things on the internet, like, if you don't have haters, if you don't have people leaving mean comments on your blog or your YouTube channel or wherever, then you're not doing enough. You're not saying the right things, and you're not being bold enough. Because if you're making everybody happy, like, and that's like my zone. I'm like, no one's ever said anything mean to me on the internet. I win. It's like my goal in life. Like, like, it terrifies me to walk into the waters of, like, someone's going to say something mean. Like, my youngest, he's like, are you going to go on YouTube? I'm like, I am. He's like, oh, but the comments, they're going to hurt your soul. I'm like, I'm going to get somebody to read them for me. And he's like, oh, is that going to be me? I'm like, no, probably your dad. But, you know, like, how that's terrible that I have already instilled that into him at 11 years old. So now he's got to watch me be brave and watch me, like, be okay with the fact that somebody just called me fat on the internet. Like,
yeah, it's true. And that's the thing. It doesn't even have to be about what you're saying or what you're creating.
It's totally not going to be any relevance to anything I say. It's always like, you're dumb, you're ugly, I hate your shirt. Like, it has nothing to do with the value that you're putting out there anyway. So dumb.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And what was I going to say? Oh, I really like this. She said, so you have two choices. I have two choices. I can write down and send them into the world and hope they find a home, which is really true. I mean, that's what you have to think about, is that there's going to be someone that needs to hear that.
Right.
There's going to be someone that is looking for whatever you're doing. Or I can hide my light under a bushel because I'm too afraid that someone won't like the glare.
Yeah. I know. And it sounds so romantic and inspiring when you read it, and then you go out there and you're like, but somebody's going to say something mean to me on the internet. And so I'm going to go turn right back around and stay right here where no one's saying anything mean to me.
If you don't put out anything, then nobody can say anything, right? I mean,
yeah. But I like the things that helped her. They seem basic, but they really are important. Like, she talked about, she stopped reading reviews. She writes for herself. So meaning, like, that she's creating what she feels is right. She's not creating what she thinks people want. And then that she also feeds her creativity with other things. So just coloring, or, getting lost in YouTube videos, which is my current thing that I've been doing. That was great. Oh my gosh. And then chapter 15 was heavy. I wrote, shoo.
Cool. Yeah.
That's all I had.
I know. Well, yeah. And the lie is, I will never get past this. And that is taught very personal. It's about her brother suicide when he was younger. I guess he was in his late teens. She was 15.
Yeah.
And she just talks about how, like, and this is amazing. I will not let a nightmare have more power than my dreams.
Yes.
I mean, there were just some things that were just incredible about the way she used this very traumatic event in her life for something good.
Yeah.
And I think you see this a lot, and that's one of the really great things, you see when somebody's died of cancer or something horrific has happened in a family, and they make funds and races and are, you know, really bringing a community together and
Mm-hmm.
awareness. And you know, that's exactly the kind of stuff that she's kind of talking about. And of course hers is more personal
Yeah.
about how she uses it in her life, but I think that that's really amazing how she just talks about how like things are going to happen, and you can either use it as an excuse, or you can use it to fuel yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Also, I really, really, really like her third thing that helped her. She was making herself think about it.
Yeah.
And it was that for 5 minutes a day, she reserved a specific time. That's Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And she would think about what she was doing, or think about the issue then. And so it really helped her stay away from thinking about it on a loop throughout the day, because she knew like at this specific time I was going to think about it, and then I could just let it go and go on with the rest of her day. Obviously things, I'm sure, creeped up, but it really gave her the power back that she felt like she was in control of her thoughts. And I definitely feel like that is a valuable thing when you're going through a trauma.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, that was really neat. It was from, and she even talks about how she used that in her book. And it is pretty amazing to think about compartmentalizing it, you know, that like you had this, you know, and I think it is amazing to be able to say, you know, give yourself permission also. Because I think the reason why horrible things kind of loop in our head is that we don't give ourselves permission to think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you give yourself that permission for those few minutes or whatever you allot,
Mm-hmm.
It really is going to allow yourself to just breathe the rest of the time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So these were good chapters. They definitely hit on things that Vanessa and I are working on in ourselves and in our business, like currently. So they definitely like hit out of the park. It's always really awesome when you're doing something and then you get outside validation that what you're doing has worked for other people. And yes, it is real. And yes, you should be doing that. So that's really, really exciting. And I feel like chapter 12, was it, or 11, will be on loop. I think it was 12, will be on loop in my brain for a while. But I'm excited to see how this book wraps up at the end of the month. So next week is our last week, and then we'll also go ahead and put together a overview video for you of like what we thought about the book, so that you can share it with your friends or watch it. And if you are at a different place in the book with us, or you find this after we are done with it. But anyway, join us next Thursday night, the last Thursday in July, for our last installment. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.